You come across an old cast iron pan at a yard sale, in a box down in the cellar, or handed down from someone who's passed on, and it's rusted, brown, rough, sorry looking. Most people take one look and call it ruined, then toss it straight in the bin. Don't. That rusted pan is very likely a finer piece of cookware than anything sitting on a store shelf today. Heavy iron, built to last well over a century, and that rust isn't the end of its story at all. It's only a surface layer, and it comes right off. With a potato, some salt, a bit of oil, and your oven, you can bring that pan all the way back, clean, black, slick, ready to fry an egg that slides right off the surface. And once restored, it'll serve your kitchen for the rest of your life, and your children's after that. Let me walk you through the whole process, the cleaning and the seasoning both, the way it's been done in ordinary kitchens for generations. Why a rusted pan is worth saving. Here's what you need to understand before we begin, because it explains exactly why a cast iron pan is worth restoring when a rusted modern pan simply isn't. Cast iron is solid, thick iron, and iron rusts wherever it meets dampness. That's the entirety of what rust is, the surface of the iron reacting where water got to it. It hasn't eaten through the pan, it's only sitting on top. Scrub the rust away, and there's good, solid iron underneath, every single time. Then comes the heart of the process, seasoning the bare iron, meaning you bake thin layers of oil directly into the metal until they harden into a black, slick surface bonded right onto the pan. That seasoning is what makes the pan naturally non-stick and what keeps rust from ever returning. Strip the rust, season the iron, and a pan everyone else had given up on becomes the finest piece in your kitchen. That's the entire project, start to finish. I'm Nomi Yoder, and this is the method my own grandmother taught me, practical knowledge passed down through generations of women who kept their kitchens running on iron that never wore out. Removing the rust, a potato, and some salt. My favorite way to strip rust off a pan uses just two things sitting in your kitchen right now, a potato and coarse salt. Nothing else. And there's a genuine reason it works, not some old wives' trick. A potato contains a mild natural acid, the same category of acid that cuts through rust, and salt provides the grit needed to scrub. Together, the acid loosens the rust while the salt scours it away, lifting it clean off the iron. It's the gentlest rust remover there is, and it's already sitting in your vegetable bin and salt cellar. So that's where we start. Take a good-sized potato. A large one gives you something substantial to grip and scrub with. Cut it cleanly in half. Into the pan, scatter a generous layer of coarse salt, kosher salt if you have it, since the larger grains scrub more effectively, covering the rusted areas well. Take the cut half of the potato, flat wet side facing down, and scrub it in circles over the rust, pressing it into the salt as you go. As you work, the potato's juice combines with the salt into a wet, brownish paste. That brown color is the rust lifting away, which tells you it's working. Scrub every rusted spot thoroughly, and don't be gentle about it. The iron can handle the pressure. Once the salt turns brown, gritty, and grimy, it's done its job. Tip it out, scatter fresh salt, and scrub again with the potato. Keep repeating with fresh salt until every trace of rust is gone. The sides and curved areas are trickier to reach, so work the potato up along the walls of the pan and down into the corner, where the bottom meets the side, scrubbing those thoroughly as well. You want every square inch of that pan free of rust. The interior, then flip it and do the bottom and exterior too, since any rust left behind will only creep back up under the seasoning later. A large potato gives you the grip needed to really bear down on the bottom. Scrub it all, and you'll watch that sorry brown pan transform back into clean gray iron right under your hand. For a particularly stubborn patch that the potato and salt won't quite lift, reach for steel wool, a plain scouring pad. On badly rusted old pans, this is genuinely helpful, and there's no harm using it on bare cast iron, since you're only removing rust and there's nothing on the surface yet worth protecting. Scrub the worst spots with the steel wool until the last of the rust is gone and the iron underneath is fully clean and bare. Take your time here and get every bit. This is the one step you shouldn't rush, since the seasoning to come will only bond to clean, bare iron, never over hidden rust. Once the rust is entirely gone, rinse the pan thoroughly under the tap to wash away the salt and loosen debris. Dry it completely. Now comes a rule you must respect above all else with cast iron. Dry it immediately, and dry it completely. Bare cast iron with no seasoning will flash back to rust within minutes if left wet, undoing all your scrubbing in an instant. Take a towel and dry every surface thoroughly. Don't be alarmed if the towel comes away with black residue. That's entirely normal and will stop once the pan is properly seasoned. To be fully certain no moisture remains, set the pan in a warm oven for a few minutes to drive off the last hidden traces. Water can hide in the iron where a towel simply can't reach it. Bone dry is what you're after before a single drop of oil touches the surface. While drying it, preheat your oven to a good hot temperature, around 450 degrees Fahrenheit, since a hot oven is exactly what bakes oil into a hard, durable seasoning. Let the pan finish drying inside for those few minutes, then remove it carefully. It'll be hot and heavy both, so wear proper oven mitts and set it down somewhere heat-safe. Let it cool just enough to handle comfortably, while still hot enough that oil will spread thin and easily without smoking the moment it touches the surface. Seasoning, the part that makes the pan. This is the step that actually creates the pan, so approach it carefully. First, choose your oil. You want something with a high smoke point, able to withstand real heat without burning. Avocado oil works well for this, among a few other options. The specific type matters less than its ability to handle high temperatures. Pour a small amount onto the pan, enough to coat it, and using a cloth or paper towel, work it across every surface, the interior, the sides, the bottom, the handle, every crack and curve, until the entire pan wears a film of oil with no dry patches anywhere, since a dry patch is exactly where rust can start creeping back in. Here's the part of seasoning that people consistently get wrong. Once the pan is fully coated, take a fresh, dry cloth and wipe nearly all of that oil back off again. Wipe until the pan looks almost dry, with only the barest, thinnest film remaining on the iron. That sounds backward, I know, but it's the entire secret. A thin film bakes hard, black, and slick. A thick film left behind doesn't bake hard at all. It turns sticky, gummy, and tacky, ruining the work and forcing you to start over. Coat it fully, then wipe nearly all of it away. Thin, thin, thin. Wipe the inside, wipe the sides, flip it, and wipe the bottom until every surface carries just the barest sheen. Then it goes into the hot oven, upside down, with a baking sheet or a piece of foil on the rack below to catch any drips. Upside down so any last trace of oil runs off rather than pooling in the bottom. Since you've wiped it nearly dry, there shouldn't be much to drip at all, but the sheet below protects your oven floor regardless. Let it bake for a solid half hour, while the oil transforms from a wet film into a hard, dry, black seasoning bonded permanently onto the iron. Building up layers. Here's the part about seasoning you absolutely need to understand, and it's why a well-seasoned pan is so highly prized. One coat is a good start, but it isn't enough to produce that truly slick, non-stick surface you're after. You build seasoning in layers, coat upon coat. After the first half hour, carefully remove the pan, hot and heavy as always, and let it cool. Don't apply fresh oil while it's still blazing hot, since oil on iron that hot will smoke and ruin the coat. Once it's cooled down considerably, repeat the entire oiling process, thin coat, wiped nearly off, back into the hot oven for another half hour. Do this 3 times total, 4 or even 5 if your patience holds out, each thin layer baking directly onto the one before it. With every additional coat, the pan grows blacker, slicker, and better. 3 to 5 coats is generally what builds the kind of fine non-stick surface that food slides right off of and cleans with a simple wipe. It takes an afternoon of your time, but you do it once, and the pan serves you for decades afterward. Once you've finished those several coats, you have it, a pan that was rusted, cast off, and looking ruined, brought entirely back to black, smooth and slick, better than it likely was even new, since old cast iron is genuinely finer iron than most of what's sold today. For a few cents worth of potato, salt, and oil, applied to a pan someone else had given up on, you now own a piece of cookware for the rest of your life. Fry an egg in it and watch it slide right across the surface. That's the real reward, and it's an honest one. Keeping it that way. A word now on maintenance, since you've put in real work and want it to last. A seasoned cast iron pan isn't washed the way other dishes are. You don't scrub it with soap and leave it sitting wet in a drying rack, since that strips the seasoning and invites rust straight back in. Instead, wipe it out or rinse it with a little hot water and a soft scrub while it's still warm from cooking. And here's the part people tend to forget: dry it immediately and completely, then wipe the thinnest film of oil over the interior before putting it away. Dry and lightly oiled, every single time. Do that faithfully, and the seasoning only improves with age, and the pan never rusts again. It becomes one of those pieces a kitchen genuinely gets built around. Why this knowledge nearly disappeared. Take a quiet moment to think about why a rusted cast iron pan gets thrown in the bin by people who simply don't know better, while you now understand it for the treasure it actually is. There's no money in teaching anyone that a ruined-looking pan can be saved with a potato and an afternoon of effort. There's considerable money, however, in selling you a brand new pan, the shiny coated kind that scratches and wears out within a few years and has to be replaced, while the cast iron your great-grandmother used is still going strong 80 years later and will easily outlive you too. So the new pans get the advertising budget and the prime shelf space, while the plain knowledge of how to save and season old iron, knowledge that would mean you never buy another pan again, quietly stops getting taught. I'm not suggesting there's some deliberate plot behind it. It's the same quiet pattern as always. An entire industry grew up around selling pans that wear out, and the old knowledge of iron that never wears out simply stopped being passed down from mother to daughter because nobody profits from teaching it. Your great-grandmother seasoned her own iron, cooked on the same pan her entire life, and passed it along without thinking twice, because that was simply how a kitchen was kept. Somewhere along the way, that plain knowledge slipped away until a rusted cast iron pan started looking like trash to an entire generation that was never shown its actually treasure. Fixing it takes a potato and an afternoon. You take the cast-off, rusted pan, scrub it clean with the potato and salt, dry it thoroughly, oil it thin, and bake it coat upon coat, and you've brought back a pan that will genuinely outlast you. That's how this knowledge finds its way home, one saved pan, one seasoned skillet at a time. The old iron back in service, and the old knowledge back in your hands. What I'd ask of you.
So here's what I'll ask.
If you've got a rusted old cast iron pan tucked away in a cupboard or cellar that you'd given up on, or you spot one cheap at a sale, bring it back to life the way I've shown you here, and come back and tell me in the comments how it turned out, whether that egg slid right off. I genuinely love hearing that you've saved one. Tell me too, while you're there, your county and roughly how old your house is, since older homes and families so often still hold on to real old iron skillets, griddles, Dutch ovens passed down through generations, and I learned something from every one of you about what old pieces are still in service out there. Next time, I'll walk you through the daily cooking and upkeep of cast iron, how to cook on it so the seasoning only keeps improving, and the handful of simple habits that keep it black and slick for a lifetime without a single spot of rust ever returning. But today you start with the rusted pan. Scrub it clean with a potato and salt.
Dry it bone dry.
Oil it in the thinnest film and bake it black, coat upon coat through the afternoon, and watch a pan everyone else gave up on come back slick, black, and better than new. You'll understand, finally, that the rusted iron was never ruined, only neglected, and that bringing it back was always within your own two hands. This is Nomi Yoder, and I thank you for sitting a while with me.